Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dreaming and Imagining, the second in the Taste of History series co-sponsored by the UFRAT Museum of Art and the California History Center, both essential incubators and curators of the arts and humanities at De Anza College. I want to acknowledge the FHDA Board of Trustee members that are present and also the senior leadership from De Anza College and Foothill College. My name is Tony Santa Ana. I use Shah, he, himself pronouns, and I am the program coordinator for the Office of Equity, Social Justice, and Multicultural Education at De Anza College. Before we start, I want to acknowledge what's happening in our moment. We are at home, trying to work from home. We have children, we are homeschooling. We have aging parents and aging people in our lives that we're taking care of. We may not have jobs. We may not have food to eat. A lot of things are happening in terms of our climate. There is political and social unrest. And we are in a global pandemic with COVID-19. With all that said, tonight is a night where I hope that you're present to listen to the wisdom and to the beautiful stories of these human beings that are going to share with us stories and their wisdom from themselves and their people. Before we begin with the program, I want to begin with a land acknowledgement by an elder, Gregg Castro. Greg?
Hi, it's Panikan. Thank you. Hushatuhi, greetings to my relatives. My name is Gregg Castro, and I am a Ramaytush and Rumsanloni and Totral Selenin, and I've been an indigenous activist in the California indigenous community and in the Bay Area for the nearly 30 years. And on behalf of the Ramaytush ancestors and people, I welcome you to this event online and to acknowledge that De Anza College is in the southern area, transitional area of the Ramaytush people. We have never forgotten, ceded, nor extinguished our obligations as caretakers of our lands. We are still here, and we are still wanting to be caretakers of the places that gave us birth. We don't own this place. No one owns this place. It owns itself. But we are here as collaborators and companions to the land as it struggles for life, especially the last 250 years of wounding that we have given it because we have not been able to take care of it. And we're seeing the results all around us now with the wildfires and climate change. But there's still hope, and there's still opportunities for us to bring back those ways that show love and care to the land and to each other in these times that is so much needed. So Hayene, Hersha, Pesha, Warap, welcome to the homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Greg, for the land acknowledgement. We really appreciate that, getting permission from our elders and the people who are caring for this land. Tonight's program brings together 5 beautiful human beings and many of you that are in the audience listening. These human beings that will speak tonight are loving activists, cultural curators, and community caretakers who bring the wisdom and lessons of their ancestors into the work they do now. So I invite you to listen with your heart and your entire being as we collectively shape our future together. As you listen, the prompt that we have given the speakers today is this: how do we learn from the past and our ancestors so that we can dream of a better future? That is the prompt that our speakers will speak to today. Our first speaker is Pōka Laenui, a native son of Hawaii. He is a lawyer and a scholar and who is credited as the father of the Hawaiian sovereignty movement. He's going to be speaking about decolonizing, dreaming, and the impact of colonization on dreaming and imagining. His decolonization, the process of decolonization writing, inspired and influenced our event. Pōka, please, the floor is yours.
Ano ai me ke aloha e nā hulu manu like ole. Greetings to you birds of many feathers. In the Hawaiian tradition, normally the ali'i, or the elders and the wise people, were authorized or allowed to wear the birds of certain feathers. And as we have transitioned into this period of modernity, those traditions have gone to the past. And so the greetings that I extend is the greetings to all of you birds of many feathers, recognizing and respecting the quality of thinking that you all possess. So again, ano ai me ke aloha, e nā hulu manu like ole. O wau no o Pōka Laenui. I am Pōka Laenui. So let's get to the question, how do we learn from the past and the ancestors and dream of a better future? The problem that I come to with that question is, how do we identify truly the past and the ancestors? Over what period of time? Now, we all have different experience of colonization, but colonization has certainly touched all of our people. And so often as we look at our ancestors, we look at history, we look at the past, it inevitably becomes looking through this prism of colonization, whether it's political colonization, religious colonization, economic colonization, or the colonization of our deep culture, so that we have essentially gone along with that process of colonization, not realizing what is happening. Different people have different experiences. Some of our people can get right back to a past prior to first contact by foreigners into our lands. Other people has been colonized for such a long period of time, perhaps 500 years. And so getting back to who are our ancestors and how do we learn from that past is a difficult question. In the Hawaiian case, what we have had is about 150, maybe 200 years ago, the Hawaiian people actually governed themselves. They were quite sophisticated. We had our own nation, we had our own language. We were a very intellectual people. We understood that one of the gods of the world, the goddess really of time, there was no going backward, it was always forward. There was no yin and yang to the time element. With regards to the life element, the stability element, the fluidity element, the humanity element, and the time element only had one direction. The rest you had back and forth. That was part of the philosophy of the Hawaiian people. So that as we met with modernity, as we met with even colonization, we were able to grasp it and make it our own rather than having colonizers take over until 1893, when the Americans landed in Hawaii and by force of arms overthrew our nation. I won't get into that story because that will take far more than my allotted time, but we continue to remember that we had been an independent nation and we continue to struggle, many of us, not all of us, many of us, for that independence, to decolonize, get rid of the Americans from our shores and become our own Hawaiian nation. So it's a difficult problem of cutting through those prisms, especially the prism of colonization through religion, because we have so many of our people who have turned into Christians as well as many other religions. So how do we pierce through that and really examine who we had been? The next question, even if we can pierce through these prisms of colonization, do we want to follow what we find after going back and identifying our past, identifying our ancestors? Do we build our future based on what we understand to be the past? See, part of the problem is that oftentimes we have our history, we have our ancestry become anchors for us in our dreaming. So that what we want to do is we want to go backward and live a time that had existed prior to colonization. But that is a denial of that essence of the time element. We're not able to go back. We cannot deny the fact that these events have occurred to our people. So rather than looking at history and rather than looking at ancestry as an anchor into the past, we need to convert it and see it as providing us a springboard into the future. It gives us the foundation, not to stay there, but to go further into our future. And that is the reason for understanding of ancestry and understanding of the past. So this idea of springboarding into the future, how do we do it? What do we take from the past? What are the elements of the past? You know, there's a continuing problem or sort of conflict that many indigenous people have. And that is, how do you integrate modernity with culture, modernity with ancestry? And it seems that we are being disloyal to our ancestry and to our culture if what we do is we become too modern. But that's not the case. We need to understand and incorporate both modernity as well as history and culture and not be afraid. And so it challenges all of us as we dream about these things, not to be afraid of that challenge. I think my time is up, so I want to thank all of you for inviting me, letting me be part of this discussion. Aloha, ahoy ho.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pōka. Just want to uplift some of the things that resonated with me. Speaking to before colonization, Hawaii was an independent nation and it had intellectualism, had their way of governing. And till this day, some of the people in Hawaii are struggling for independence and self-determination. So I want to uplift that. And also something you said that really resonated with me is the providing us the past as a springboard into the future. Thank you for that wisdom. So our next speaker is Jocelyn Jackson, is a chef, an artist, a lawyer who founded Just Us Kitchen in Oakland, California, and is a founding member of the People's Kitchen Collective. She will speak to ancestral song and food story, nourishment, health, and a sense of connection for dreaming. Let's welcome Jocelyn. Jocelyn?
Thank you so much, Tony, and to everyone who created this very sacred circle of hearts and minds. I'm so grateful to be here. And I want to start with something very specific, which is a tradition in my family of blessing an experience with a song that everybody seems to know by heart, and we all sing together, and we all find our harmony and our place in. We start with this song because this tradition really connects us to our roots and to the spirit of our family and why we stay connected. And this is what I'll share. Even freedom cannot rest We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it's found. And that's a song that comes from a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock. It's called Ella's Song, and it's referring to Ella Baker, one of our ancestors who fought so stridently for our civil rights. And I really like starting there because there are so many foremothers that have given us access to our placement in freedom to this one of me that I really do turn to. And it's important in my experience as a person who uses my cooking as activism, uses my cooking to create and to really generate beloved community. It's important to find the source, to find the legacy of those instincts, and to really resonate in that learning. Because so much of what many of us have experienced is educating or being educated and being trained within broken systems. That very act separated us. And when they separate it from our histories, they separate from our presence and future. So I'm very clear when I'm doing my work that I'm centering the lived experience of Black and Brown folks. And with Justice Kitchen, primarily working with Black women and femmes, because it is very key point of my purpose to actively be in healing experience for these communities that are so close to my heart. It's so very for me too, as I've gone to the ancestor, my path, to really center on the political, the ecological, the sacred, as well as the cultural meanings behind foods, because it creates so much of a source of connection to the continent. And so every meal starts with intention. It starts with honoring ancestors. And this is the one I'll honor today. This is my sweet great-grandma Lucky on my mother's side of the family. She experienced so much, so many stories I'll never know. The few that I do know, many of them uplift me and some of them break my heart. And so for her, when I'm one very much to center that experience of creating liberation. And it has that with every ingredient, there's a story. It's really sweet to be able to have this experience of being able to go back to original cookbooks like this one. This is Mrs. Fisher's cookbook. Mrs. Fisher is the first Black woman to publish a book in the United States, a cookbook that was published in 1881. So when I see these kinds of cookbooks, when I see this legacy and these ancestors bringing their stories to life through food, for me, it's like a love letter. Always back in order to move forward, like I said, it's a beautiful practice to be in that process. The same goes for ingredients. This is the beautiful okra pod that's dried. Many people have experienced eating okra, but what I would love to inspire in everyone is to look for the story, and very much the love story of okra. With my experience of reclaiming the Middle Passage and returning back to the continent with foodways, I've learned that this okra plant and its dried seeds that you can hear in there, that was one of the things that enslaved folks would grab for. They didn't know where they were going. They knew they were being stolen. And when you know that you're being stolen from your land, an instinct is to take the things of survival. And so often that is seeds. If you don't know where you're going, you know there'll be earth there to sow those seeds. And so that beautiful instinct of survival in the midst of so much violence, that's what I call to in my cooking. I call to that moment where those dry seeds are put into plates of braids, braided into this hair that defies gravity. And that's where there were seeds held during the Middle Passage. The food was brought, the story was brought, the tradition, so that today when I'm trying to find my connections back to my homeland, it's often in these dishes of Creole and Cajun gumbo, of the black-eyed pea and okra stew, of the peanut butter sauce of Ghana and Mali. And I create that opportunity to look at all these ingredients that have been a part of this tradition to give me access to those legacies. And it's really an amazingly important part for me to acknowledge all that I am unlearning, all that I am giving myself opportunity and space and capacity to bring into myself that was made violently silenced or made invisible. And to really get clear on this reality of not having a goal of being equal to any present entity, especially when the equality is often balanced to a colonizing presence, an imperial presence. That's not my goal. It never has been a goal of mine to approximate or equal in that way. My goal is to be equal to my ancestors, unfettered by harm, and finding repair, finding healing, and finding this sweet resonance with the connection we will always have, no matter interruptions, no matter insurrections. We will always have this connection back to ancestor and forward to legacy.
Thank you, Jocelyn. So much richness in your talk, and a couple of things I want to uplift. There were so many. I was writing it down. Is cooking as activism to generate a beloved community. Also, every ingredient, there is a story, a love story, accessing to the legacies. Equal, you want to be equal to your ancestors, and back to ancestors and forward to legacy. Thank you so much for that, Jocelyn. Our next speaker is Melissa Ann Nievera Lozano. She is a scholar, a community organizer, and co-editor of a recent book called The Billy Binek's Radical Imagination Reader. She uses storytelling as medicine for dreaming and imagining the power of the words. Let's welcome Melissa. Melissa?
Good evening and blessings, community. Thank you for the invitation to circle up together in these times. Salamat for this moment. On this Thursday night, I'm low-key celebrating right now my Friday. This is my Friday, right? I teach on Zoom, remote learning at Evergreen Valley College, Monday through Thursday, and I recognize that Zoom fatigue is real, but this is a special Zoom moment. So I'm grateful for the change in that energy. When I think about this question of learning from the past and the ancestors to shape for ourselves a better future, I have to sit in this present moment, right? Because we're thinking about past and future, but what is happening in this present moment? And for so many of us, our heritages and our cultures, time is not linear, right? It is a circle, a swirling, a flow, or waves of memory washing in and out of us. We walk with history inside of us. We walk with futures waiting to be birthed inside of us. And inside of us is a lot of grief right now. And when I think of our lives on Zoom, I think of our isolation, our separation, and our need for each other again. As an ethnic studies professor in particular, I think of this isolation and the dark, dark rising of white supremacist violence on the interwebs. That which has entered my Zoom class meetings unannounced, looking to disrupt, violate, penetrate, inflict violence, so counter to the connection we need to shape our future, so counter to the kind of connection that's happening right now on this Zoom meeting. And I think of the person who decided to enter my course, unannounced, spew hate, nonsense, who was there to intentionally create disconnection. And I prayed on this person. Like, what human being has reached a point so low in their lives, so disconnected from themselves, so disconnected from their loved ones at such a great distance that they've found Zoom bombing and white supremacy and psychological violence and trauma as the answer to a sense of meaning. There is pain for this person, while there is pain and grief in all of us during these uneasy times. So I'm asking us to connect to this pain. where we are at once fighting a brand new virus the world has never seen. We are surviving a nearly year-long pandemic now. We are tumbling and tumbling through social unrest. We are battling the disease of misinformation. We are burying our loved ones at alarming rates. We exist. We exist right now in this present moment because our ancestors too carried grief, pain, trauma, mourning in ways that made it possible for us to be here. How did they do this? So I draw from conversations with a dear friend of mine, Uni Tsao Snyder, who reminds me, what would it look like to see our pain as a portal? This tumultuous time doesn't limit us. We're not bound by these limits, and rather it's an opportunity to metabolize the pain, as Audre Lorde would say, to metabolize the pain and see the wisdom it presents. So when we have this, we remember that collectively creating a better world is about tuning into the raw truths of ourselves, the authentic self without titles, earthly garments, masks, screen names, handles, profile pictures, personas, these ornaments of colonization. May we strip ourselves right down to our bare bones. This world is asking us to be present in this portal of pain that is here, this unknown place, to cross the bridge to the next world, to the next future. Our future is waiting to be birthed. And through the telling of our stories, the power of our words, the way our stories connect our humanity, we will find our way like the ancestors before us, deep in this grief. In an online healing circle last week with women of color throughout the Bay Area, these sisters reminded me that we as human beings, our bodies, are made up mostly of water. So in our grief, it's about feeling the connection between our tears, our bloodlines, lineages, the rain falling, the literal rain, but also like the rain of all this, all of this stuff happening right now. What does it feel like to connect to those tears as a way to connect to our ancestors? It is through our grief that we honor our connection to the ancestors. It is through our tears that we access our relationship to our ancestors. And I'm talking about an ancestral grief that isn't just a negative, like, oh, they went through so much that was so hard, period. But that grief has power. And if we are mostly made up of water, then like water, we cannot be destroyed. And like our ancestors cannot be destroyed or gone because they are within. As Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh says, we have never been born and we have never died. We are life without boundaries, not limited by this body. Thus, our grief, our pain, our mourning can be a doorway to the true limitless of who we are if we're paying attention, a true limitless to the future we imagine if we're staying authentic and staying connected, out of the dark webs, interwebs, towards each other. Thank you. Salamat.
Wow. Thank you so much, Melissa. So I just want to highlight some of the things you said, to sit in the present moment. That we walk with the futures waiting to be birthed. And that we use our pain and grief as a portal. That the feeling and the connection of water is something to be reminded of our stories. So thank you so much for all that you shared, and making pain and grief not a negative, but something that it is and that we all can learn from. Thank you for that, Melissa. Our next speaker is Gregg Castro. He is an Ohlone and Saugeen writer and activist on issues regarding cultural preservation, protection, education, and traditional practices. Gregg is a bearer of the ancestors' dreams, sharing about Bay Area ancestral lands, issues, and practices. Let us welcome Gregg. Gregg?
Aitzmani Khan, thank you. Hershatuhi, greetings once again, my relatives. And it's always a challenge when you're invited to these circles that you are surrounded by incredibly powerful speakers. And then you have to raise yourself up to the challenge of not embarrassing them by following along in their coattails. So I'm sort of mesmerized by the speakers already before me, and I anticipate the one behind me is going to be very powerful. So I'll try to be up to the challenge here. And the theme here is dreaming and imagining, and that is something our ancestors have been doing since the beginning of time. That is a gift and a burden, both, because we have caretaker responsibilities. We do not own anything except ourselves and our own behavior and our own actions. But everything around us is a gift. Our stories, what one of my elder mentors told me were narratives, because he didn't like the word stories. The English word stories has some intent and meaning in modern times that is not what our ancestors wanted. He said stories were something you told a cop when he pulled you over to give you a ticket. But our oral narratives are the textbooks and the encyclopedia and the Bible and the Wikipedia and the guides by which we live. And our stories tell us we have always been here in the place that we've been given birth. And that place we've been given birth is actually of us. A lot of the stories of California Native people talk about we're made from the very earth, very things of our land. In my father's Salinan tradition, we're made from elderberry, the things that we make clapper sticks so that we can have songs and stories to tell with those clapper sticks. So we're very much related in a very intimate way with the homelands that we have been given. And of course, when we use those words given, or we say my homeland, we mean it in a very different way than the English words tell us. They are gifts and they are obligations and they are sacred things to take care of. We don't own them, but they're there for us to nourish ourselves with. And we do that by nourishing the land. And when we have that relationship with it, in ways our stories tell us for thousands and thousands of years, since the dawn of time in our stories, you develop an intimate bond with the place that brings you into the world and gives you life. And even the last 250 years, a relatively short time, a blink of an eye in the terms of our tribal histories, but a very devastating time, obviously, where many of our tribes have been pushed out of their homelands, as the case of the Ramaytush people. There's almost no one of us that are still live in our homelands because we were the first victims of gentrification of this new colonial process. And the sad truth is that of all the Ramaytush people that used to live and work and play and love on this place that we call Yalamu and Pishon and other places in our homelands, the reality is that there is only one bloodline that survived the colonization process in 4 family branches. Out of all the thousands of people that were here before, only one survivor. And her progeny is still struggling to take care of the land because we haven't forgotten who we are. We haven't forgotten our obligations and our commitments. We haven't forgotten the gift of the land because that's how we're born into the world, with humility and gratitude for this gift of a place that nourishes us, gives us food, gives us sustenance, allows us to live in this beautiful place. As you see in the background here, a picture I took at Land's End, a little bit modified since our ancestors were around, but still there's the water, there's the ocean, there's the west and the sunset, where a lot of our stories tell us our ancestral spirits go to after this life is over, and they rest with the other ancestors that have gone ahead of us. And they travel to other worlds and learn other things, and sometimes they come back with those learnings. Some of the stories tell us that those ancestors that come back are the other animals that live in this besides us: eagle, bear, deer, worm, plants. Those are all living things, and in our estimate, they are all equally valid and have an equal right to be here. And we treat them as such. We treat them as relatives. That knowledge is hard to come by now. It's been forgotten by a lot of people. and certainly the newcomers who have never been taught these things. And now we lived in a very changed world. So what is the importance of dreaming? Well, we dream of a future, but actually we do that by dreaming of the past. We would gather that information through our dreams, and we bring it forward, and it informs and reweaves the future that we wish to build again. Our ancestors have been telling us for quite some time, long before the Western scientists talked about it, that the world was changing, and not in a good way, and we had to change our ways if we were to survive. We've learned about survival the last 250 years. This sojourn we're at right now, this pandemic, is not the first pandemic we have experienced. Whether it's going to be the last is yet to be seen. Whether we have learned the lessons of our past. Whether in our dreams the past comes to us and speaks to us and teaches us. Or if we shy away because we fear the nightmares of our dreams. Our stories tell us that sometimes there's not happy endings. That's because our stories are of real life. And so they're not fairy tales. They tell us how things will be if we do certain things, if we act out certain behaviors, if we are not at our best and remember our ancestors and remember the things they taught us and remember who we are. If we can do that through our dreams, even our waking dreams, when we walk along amongst the land and amongst the relatives that are here, who are always talking to us, but we've forgotten how to listen. But if we can remember and we can be quiet and listen, the land will tell us what we need to know. Through dreams, waking or sleeping, through the words we say to each other in those quiet moments when we're still and connected to the places where we're standing or sitting or laying, where we're being. In the hustle and bustle of life, especially here in Silicon Valley, we sometimes forget who we really are. We become machine-like. We become like the computers that we type into all day long. And we have to remember that we're made of this land. We have to remember that time is not linear for us at our indigenous levels, and we're all indigenous in some way, whether we remember or not. Time can be fluid. And so we can bend back to time, to ancient parts of our history where the world was talking to us and the animal relatives were talking to us and teaching us as the youngest how to take care of this place and how to take care of each other. You can't separate the two. It is obvious that we've forgotten some of that. So our dreams and our talk to each other, to ourselves, that needs to be remembered and brought back so that we can remember what to be grateful for. It's not too late to do the right thing, no matter what the consequence of what has happened before. In the moment, we all have choices to make, and we can choose to do the right thing. And how do we know that? And yes, there's dreams. And yes, there's the ancient heritage and traditional knowledge of lots of people, especially the people of this land that we're on now, the Ohlone people. But I believe that knowledge comes from all parts of the earth, any people that are connected to the earth, and we're all connected if we can remember. Heights Panikan, thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Greg. Some things I want to uplift is you said that everything around us is a gift. That these gifts are obligations, that these sacred things, that we need to take care of them, and we do it by taking care of our relatives and our land. That you haven't forgotten about who we are, that the gift of the land, that it nourishes us. Our dreams tell us about our past and our futures, and that we need to listen to the land because it will tell us what we really want to know. Thank you very much, Gregg. Our final speaker is Jen the Rainmaker. She's an entrepreneur, a speaker, native medicine, and wisdom carrier of indigenous Chichimeca and Toltec descent. She's going to guide us in an activity around dreaming and imagining, who will close us out with something that we will do collectively. Jen?
Thank you so much, Tony, for having me. Peace and blessings to everybody, your ancestors, your bloodline. Nije Xochiquetzali, Yayak Yajak. That is a traditional greeting from my people, which means my Nahuatl name is Xochiquetzali. So it means I am Xochiquetzali, force and power. I am a spring and I emanate. I want to quickly talk about my ancestors and their beliefs before we get into this practice so that it'll make a little bit more sense. So I am a descendant of Chichimeca dream warriors who believed that our dreams create our reality and that we could plant the dreams that we actually want to see blossom in our waking reality. And so I tell people before you go to sleep, symbolically, you can plan to dream. There's actually an entire process that we do to do this, but symbolically, as you're drifting off to sleep tonight, you can plant a seed that you want to see blossom, not only for yourself, but for your community, for the collective, for future generations, right? Part of my role and responsibility in the community is that I was given that of a faith keeper, which means no matter what is happening around me in the community, I am responsible to hold the faith and to hold the vision of what it is that we actually desire. So what is it that we're using our inner winds to create? Are we using them to create obstacles, or are we using them to clear our path to our greatest destiny? Are we using our winds to create these dreams that we want to see blossoming for ourselves and for future generations, and also healing our ancestors, connecting with them? My ancestors, because they believed our dreams create our reality, then that means that we are literally their dream come true. And it said that we meet in our dream before we meet in the waking reality. So I believe that all of us in some way, shape, or form have met in the dream world. And it is said that when you're in your mother's womb, you're dreaming of who you would become. And so we are rhythm people. We are born and we are formed under the rhythm of our mother's heartbeat. So as I was listening to everybody's story today, my drum behind me called to me. So I'm going to guide us through this journey. I'm going to use the drum to remind us of being in the womb, to remind us of dreaming of who we would become so that we can imagine the future that we desire. Again, not just for ourselves, but what is it that we truly desire for future generations? So holding them in the vision of having peace and love and joy and freedom, financial freedom, spiritual freedom, physical freedom, right? Seeing all these systems of oppression come tumbling down, a world where it is truly just, and where people are able to actually create the lives that they desire, where this medicine is reawakened, where the power within you is reawakened. The medicine of your ancestors, of their wisdom is reawakened, for that to come back to you while you're dreaming. And so I'm going to grab my drum and we'll do this journey together. And what I'll have all of you do is just get into a comfortable position. You can go ahead and close your eyes. This is a time for you to relax. This is a time for you to dream. This is a time for you to be connected to your ancestors' medicine, to the medicine of the land that you live on. I'm here on Yukat's land, which are the original people of this land. So I also give thanks and honor to them. And you can give thanks and honor to those that were on the land that you are currently on, to the original people of that land, giving thanks for your ancestors' medicine and wisdom. As you close your eyes, go back to that time when you were in your mother's womb. You were dreaming of who you would become. Be connected to the wisdom, to the medicine of your ancestors. Allow them to come into this space to receive a healing. I want you to envision a new world, not only for yourself, but for all the future generations. What is it that you dream for Mother Earth? What seeds would you like to plant to see blossom? Can I have you imagine being in a garden that represents your dreams? In this garden, you can see if there's any weeds, any fears, any limiting beliefs, any heavy energy that would prevent you from reaching your greatest destiny. Anything that you see there that would prevent future generations from reaching their greatest destiny. Begin to pull these weeds up, seeing not only the root, but the seed that was planted. Continue to pull all of the weeds that you see until none remain. And now, in your hand, there are seeds that represent your dreams, ancestors' dreams, dreams for future generations. I want you to begin to plant those seeds. And as you do that, you're going to feel the rain coming down, watering these seeds, purifying you, and purifying you, your mind, your body, your spirit, your ancestors, and your bloodline also receive this purification, this healing. Begin to see those seeds blossoming all around you, turning into the most beautiful flowers that you've ever seen. As this happens, green hummingbirds begin to fly all around you, representing love. Blue hummingbirds come as well, representing the magic and the medicine of doing what others believe is impossible. The medicine of the eagle arrives, connecting us with Mother Earth, with that creative life force energy. The medicine of these dreams blossoming more beautifully than you could have ever expected. We give thanks for all of the lessons that we've learned. We give thanks for the medicine, for the abundance that Mother Earth has provided. The medicine of our ancestors, their wisdom. Allow feelings of peace and love, joy to flow through you. Now pulling your awareness back into the space that you're in. You're going to slowly open up your eyes when you're ready.
Wow, Jen, thank you so much for having us dream collectively together. For those seeds are our futures. For you said that our dreams create our realities and our dreams can come true. And with the drum of being the heartbeat, reminding us that we're in the womb of dreaming who we will become. And the power within you is reawakened as we dream. Giving thanks to everything you said.
Slazo Komati and Umateo for allowing me to be here.
Wow. I just want to say a deep, deep thank you and gratitude to our speakers, Pōka, Jocelyn, Melissa, Jen, and Gregg, for sharing your stories or your oral narratives, for entrusting us with your wisdom and speaking from your ancestral spirits, and providing a space for us to dream and imagine a better world for our next generations to come. And I also want to thank those behind the scenes who helped make this happen, the social science, humanities, our community education divisions, Elvin Ramos, Sam Bliss, Gracie Galvan, Margarita Hawthorne, and the Office of Communications. A special thanks to Tom Izu and Diana Argabright from the UFRAT Museum of Art, and Tom from the California History Center. And the California History Center and the UFRAT Museum of Art really want to thank you for your support and help us meeting our fundraising goal. So they're going to be putting in the chat, or I don't know how they're going to show it on YouTube, but a link about how you can support the arts and humanities at De Anza College, because we are part of a series. But I know we have 5 more minutes. I know we have like a question and answer, or shall we leave it at that? I'm not sure. I'm getting some idea.
Personally, Tony, I would love to hear your thoughts on dreaming and imagining.
Well, I'm speechless. I think just really visualizing in the moment with Jen and just all the wisdom that I was listening to, that this is a future, and the dream that I just experienced right now is actually a reality of what I feel, what liberation feels like. It's humanizing, it's emancipatory, it's full of stories, relationship building, and it's something that you feel. And this feeling that I feel today and right in this moment is something I want to carry throughout, as not just a dream, but a reality that we carry together. It was an hour. It was an hour that we spent together, but felt like it was not a linear time. We got transported to a different reality that we know that this could be for our communities. With ritual, with ceremony, with food, with story, with song, with poetry, with just beautiful faces listening with respect and love and empathy and compassion. I know there's a lot going on in this world, and I'm not acknowledging that. And I'm not acknowledging that it's not going on in this world. I know that this is our reality. But we also collectively have so much power and energy and spirit that we can create something better for ourselves and our future generations. And this was a glimpse, a taste, a moment that we all could experience together. I don't know if I did justice to the event and justice to what we all did, but I just want to thank you for bringing the spirit to what we do, not only at Danza, but for all we do for our communities. So with that, I just want to say to you, be well, be safe for you and your loved ones, and let's continue to collectively dream and reimagine a better future for our next generations, because our ancestors did. And we are also our ancestors' wildest dreams, that some people have said before. So thank you very, very much, and see you at the next event.